Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All goes to Srila Prabhupada. Welcome devotees to our Bhagavad Gita evening circle reading program. Today we will continue with chapter 14, verse 17. And the chapter is entitled The Three Modes of Material Nature. It's going to be read and explained to us by His Grace Balabhadra Bhattacharya Prabhu. Hare Krishna Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj, accept my obeisances, all glories to the Prabhupada.
And it's all yours, Prabhu.
Haribol.
Haribol.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastai Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaudavani Pacharane Nivishesha Shunyavadi Paschata De Starne Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gopakti Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Bhagavad Gita chapter 14 text number 17. Sattvat Sanjayate Jnanam Rajaso Lova Evacha Pramada Moho Tamaso Bhavato Jnanam Evacha. From the mode of goodness, real knowledge develops. From the mode of passion, greed develops. And from the mode of ignorance develop foolishness, madness, and illusion. Purport. Since the present civilization is not very congenial to the living entities, Krishna consciousness is recommended. Through Krishna consciousness, society will develop the mode of goodness. When the mode of goodness is developed, people will see things as they are. In the mode of ignorance, people are just like animals and cannot see things clearly. In the mode of ignorance, for example, they do not see that killing one animal, they do not see that by killing one animal, they are taking the chance of being killed by the same animal in the next life. Because people have no education in actual knowledge, they become irresponsible. To stop this irresponsibility, education for developing the mode of goodness of the people in general must be there. When they are actually educated in the mode of goodness, they will become sober, in full knowledge of things as they are. Then people will be happy and prosperous. Even if the majority of the people aren't happy and prosperous, if a certain percentage of the population develops Krishna consciousness and becomes situated in the mode of goodness, then there is the possibility for peace and prosperity all over the world. Otherwise, if the world is devoted to the modes of passion and ignorance, there can be no peace or prosperity. In the mode of passion, people become greedy, and their hankering for sense enjoyment has no limit. One can see that even if one has enough money and adequate arrangements for sense gratification, there is neither happiness nor peace of mind. That is not possible because one is situated in the mode of passion. If one wants happiness at all, his money will not help him. He has to elevate himself to the mode of goodness by practicing Krishna consciousness. When one is engaged in the mode of passion, not only is he mentally unhappy, but his profession and occupation are also very troublesome. He has to devise so many plans and schemes to acquire enough money to maintain his status quo. This is all miserable, and in the mode of ignorance, people become mad, being distressed by their circumstances. They take shelter of intoxication, and thus they sink further into ignorance. Their future in life is very dark. Wow. Text 18. Urdvam gachanti satvasta madhye tistanti rajasa jaganya guna virtista ado gachanti tamasa. Those situated in the mode of goodness gradually go upward to the higher planets. Those in the mode of passion live on the earthly planets, and those in the abominable mode of ignorance go down to the hellish worlds. Purport. In this verse, the results of actions in the three modes of nature are more explicitly set forth. There is an upper planetary system consisting of the heavenly planets, where everyone is highly elevated. According to the degree of development of the mode of goodness, the living entity can be transferred to various planets in this system. The highest planet is Satyaloka or Brahmaloka, where the prime person of this universe, Lord Brahma, resides. We have seen already that we can hardly calculate the wondrous condition of life in Brahmaloka. But the highest condition of life, the mode of goodness, can bring us to this. The mode of passion is mixed. It is in the middle between the modes of goodness and ignorance. A person is not always pure, but even if he should be purely in the mode of passion, he will simply remain on this earth as a king or a rich man. But because there are mixtures, one can also go down. People on this earth, in the mode of passion or ignorance, cannot forcibly approach the higher planets by machine. In the mode of passion, there is also the chance of becoming mad in the next life. Whoa. The lowest quality, the mode of ignorance, is described here as abominable. The result of developing ignorance is very, very risky. It is the lowest quality in material nature. Beneath the human level, there are 8 million species of life, birds, beasts, reptiles, trees, etc. And according to the development of the mode of ignorance, people are brought down to these abominable conditions. The word tamasa is very significant here. Tamasa indicates those who stay continuously in the mode of ignorance without rising to a higher mode. Their future is very dark. There is an opportunity for men in the modes of ignorance and passion to be elevated to the mode of goodness. And that system is called Krishna consciousness. But one who does not take advantage of this opportunity will certainly continue in the lower modes. Text 19. Nanyam gunebhya kartaram yada drastanupasyati gunebhyascha param deti madbhavam so digachati. When one properly sees that in all activities no other performer is at work than these modes of nature, and he knows the Supreme Lord, who is transcendental to all these modes, he attains my spiritual nature. Purport. One can transcend all the activities of the modes of material nature simply by understanding them properly, by learning from the proper souls. The real spiritual master is Krishna, and he is imparting the spiritual knowledge to Arjuna. Similarly, it is from those who are fully in Krishna consciousness that one has to learn this science of activities in terms of the modes of nature. Otherwise, one's life will be misdirected. By the instruction of a bona fide spiritual master, a living entity can know of his spiritual position, his material body, his senses, how he is entrapped, and how he is under the spell of the material modes of nature. He is helpless, being in the grip of these modes, but when he can see his real position, Then he can attain to the transcendental platform, having the scope for spiritual life. Actually, the living entity is not the performer of different activities. He is forced to act because he is situated in a particular type of body, conducted by some particular mode of material nature. Unless one has the help of spiritual authority, he cannot understand in what position he is actually situated. With the association of a bona fide spiritual master, he can see his real position, and by such an understanding, he can become fixed in full Krishna consciousness. A man in Krishna consciousness is not controlled by the spell of the material modes of nature. It has already been stated in the 7th chapter that one who has surrendered to Krishna is relieved from the activities of material nature. The one who is able to see things as they are, the influence of material nature gradually ceases. Text 20. Gunan etan atitya trin dehi deha samubhavan janma mrityu jara dukkaya vimukto mritam asnute. When the embodied being is able to transcend these three modes associated with the material body, he can become free from birth, death, old age, and their distresses, and can enjoy nectar even in this life. Purport: how one can stay in a transcendental position even in this body, in full Krishna consciousness, is explained in this verse. The Sanskrit word dehi means embodied. Although one is within this material body, by advancement in spiritual knowledge, he can be free from the influence of the modes of nature. He can enjoy the happiness of spiritual life even in this body, because after leaving this body, he is certainly going to the spiritual sky. But even in this body, he can enjoy spiritual happiness. In other words, devotional service in Krishna consciousness is the sign of liberation from material entanglement. And this will be explained in the 18th chapter. When one is freed from the influence of the modes of material nature, he enters into devotional service. Text 21. Arjuna uvacha kairlingaishtrin gunan etan atito bhavati prabho kim achara katam chaitams trin gunan ativartate. Arjuna inquired, "O my dear Lord, by which symptoms is one known who is transcendental to these three modes? What is his behavior? And how does he transcend the modes of nature?" Purport: in this verse, Arjuna's questions are very appropriate. He wants to know the symptoms of a person who has already transcended the material modes. He first inquires of the symptoms of such a transcendental person. How can one understand that he has already transcended the influence of the modes of material nature? The second question asks how he lives and what his activities are. Are they regulated or non-regulated? Then Arjuna inquires of the means by which he can attain the transcendental nature. That is very important. Unless one knows the direct means by which one can be situated, always transcendentally, there is no possibility of showing the symptoms. So all these questions put by Arjuna are very important, and the Lord answers them. Text 22 to 25. Sri Bhagavan uvacha prakasam cha pravrittim cha moham eva cha pandava nadvesti sam pravrittanti tani na nivrittani kankshati udasinavat ashino gunaryo na vichalyate gunavartanta ityevam yovastistati nengdate samaduka sukha swasta samalashtashma kanchana tulya priyal priyo dhiras tulya nindatma samstuti manapa manayos tulyas tulyo mitrari pakshayo sarvaramba parityagi Gunatita Sauchate. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O son of Pandu, he who does not hate illumination, attachment, and delusion when they are present, or long for them when they disappear, who is unwavering and undisturbed through all these reactions of the material qualities, remaining neutral and transcendental, knowing that the modes alone are active, who is situated in the self and regards alike happiness and distress, who looks upon a lump of earth, a stone, and a piece of gold with an equal eye, who is equal toward the desirable and the undesirable, who is steady, situated equally well in praise and blame, honor and dishonor, who treats alike both friend and enemy, and who has renounced all material activities. Such a person is said to have transcended the modes of nature. Purport. Arjuna submitted 3 different questions, and the Lord answers them one after another. In these verses, Krishna first indicates that a person transcendently situated has no envy and does not hanker for anything. When a living entity stays in this material world, embodied by the material body, it is to be understood that he is under the control of one of the 3 modes of material nature. When he is actually out of the body, then he is out of the clutches of the material modes of nature. But as long as he is not out of the material body, he should be neutral. He should engage himself in the devotional service of the Lord so that his identity with the material body will automatically be forgotten. When one is conscious of the material body, he acts only for sense gratification. But when one transfers the consciousness to Krishna, sense gratification automatically stops. One does not need this material body, and he does not need to accept the dictations of the material body. The qualities of the material modes in the body will act, but as spirit soul, the self is aloof from such activities. How does he become aloof? He does not desire to enjoy the body, nor does he desire to get out of it. Thus, transcendently situated, the devotee becomes automatically free. He need not try to become free from the influence of the modes of material nature. The next question concerns the dealings of a transcendently situated person. The materially situated person is affected by so-called honor and dishonor offered to the body. But the transcendently situated person is not affected by such false honor and dishonor. He performs his duty in Krishna consciousness and does not mind whether a man honors or dishonors him. He accepts things that are favorable for his duty in Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, he has no necessity of anything material, either a stone or gold. He takes everyone as his dear friend who helps him in his execution of Krishna consciousness. And he does not hate his so-called enemy. He is equally disposed and sees everything on an equal level because he knows perfectly well that he has nothing to do with material existence. Social and political issues do not affect him because he knows the situation of temporary upheavals and disturbances. He does not attempt anything for his own sake. He can attempt anything for Krishna, but for his personal self, he does not attempt anything. By such behavior, one becomes actually transcendently situated. So honestly, this next verse is it's a fairly long purport. It's a very important verse. I don't want to rush through it.
I agree with you, Prabhu. I think you read my mind.
I want to read it because I love this verse, but I'll save it for Parikshit.
Thank you so much, Prabhu, for reading, especially the last verse that covered 4 verses. It's pretty powerful. Thank you so much for reading them. Would like to ask devotees if any questions, any clarification, takeaways, please do unmute yourself, or you can put it in the chat and I will read them out. Prabhu, as devotees are thinking, if they have a question, I want to ask Prabhu in the first verse that you read, I think it's 14:17 or 14:18.
Oh, 17. Yeah, 17.
17. Srila Prabhupada mentioned mixed passion between them, because sitting in the mode of ignorance and goodness. And then he made it no, I think it's 18. Can you
Okay.
go to the next verse, Vrinda? 18. And it's a very catchy phrase. Yeah, right there. It's a very catchy phrase, Prabhu, where your prophet says, but because there are mixtures, one can also go down.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to ask a question. How can one be aware that they are in the mix and can be pulled down? How can they catch themselves? How can they be aware? Because I was when we were listening to this morning's class by Srila Prabhupada, 1:13:10, 1:3:10, Bhagavatam 1:3:10, he talked about how crazy the technology is, centuries ago, your friend is living in the same neighborhood. Now you have to drive to go see your friend. And then he talked about the whole telephone pastime, you pay 40 rupees, and now when he got a phone, it's crank, 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 so get this damn thing out of my room, So I was just thinking, because technology is so fast and advanced, and we are so caught up in it. I'm thinking is when technology is so so much involved in our lives in this rat race, it's very hard for us to be aware that we are in the mix. So how can we recognize that we're in the mix and not be pulled down, Prabhu?
Yeah, that's an important observation and a question as well. And it sort of spells itself out. It's like Krishna Surya Samamaya Haya Annaka. That Krishna's like light, Maya's like darkness. So wherever there's Krishna, there cannot be darkness. So the practical approach is that Srila Prabhupada says, always remember Krishna, or actually even Rupa Goswami says, the most important principle is always remember Krishna, never forget. So when we're remembering Krishna, that darkness, that influence goes away. That's why the next verse is so wonderful. The next verse that coming up, the last two verses are amazing. So this process, as we study, as we read, as Krishna reveals, then Maya can't touch us. She's there. She never goes anywhere. She's always there. But we can live, as he said, we can live in this world. We don't hate it. We don't desire it. We don't even desire to get out of the body. We're transcendentally situated. So what we have to achieve through practice is that transcendental platform. That transcendental platform. Brahmabhuta prasanatma nasochati nakankshati samatsaresu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labate param. So we're working our way to that platform. It's just like when you're on an airplane and it goes through all that turbulence, up, gets through the turbulence, goes above the clouds, and then no problem. So right now we're in the turbulence of our spiritual development. Every step is so difficult. Every step is so hard. Why? Because we're still attached. There's a nice example which we turned into a drama. And so the sage is teaching his disciple about Maya. So the disciple is not understanding. So what the sage does, he goes up and grabs a tree like that. I think there's a tree behind me in the picture. So he grabs a tree and he screams out to the disciple, the tree has got me. The trees got me. The trees got me. The disciple's like bewildered. What's he talking about? He's holding on to the tree. No, the trees got me. And then Guru Maharaj, let go of the tree. And he says, that is the lesson. You're hanging on to Maya and complaining this problem. Just let go. As they say in Christianity, let go, let God. But we're so attached. So it's not, don't blame Maya. We cannot blame Maya for the goodness, passion, and the ignorance. It's our attachment to it. And we're here in this material world. The modes of material nature are always active. In fact, It's what is that? Prakriti kriyamanani gunai karmani savasaha ahankar vimudatma kartahamiti manyate. The will of the spirit soul thinks himself the doer of activities that are carried out by nature. This is nature working. It's just like jailhouse. A jailhouse has its own function. The deal is keep your mouth shut and get out from there. If you want to get out from the jail, shut your mouth, follow the instructions, do what you're told, even go beyond what you're told, be really good, and maybe they'll let you out. So same thing in this material world. Keep our mouth shut in the sense of don't run after sense gratification. It's like mauna, silence. Silence means don't speak nonsense. Speak, but don't speak nonsense. Speak about Krishna. And the more we speak about Krishna, the more the effects of Maya release more and more. They just, because she's waiting for us. Maya is Krishna's servant. She's waiting for us to stop this nonsense so she can help us. But she's helping us now by punishment, making us realize this place is not for you. I'm not going to make it easy for you. And then when we realize, wow, this place is really a mess, as you said, it's mixed with all this goodness, passion, ignorance, and we just stop. We center ourselves and we move through this world thinking of Krishna constantly. What comes on the right, what comes on the left, what comes on the top, what comes on the bottom, it's okay. It's constantly thinking, there's no problem. Like in India, sometimes say, how are you doing, Prabhu? No problem. Or in Bengali, something like Kubalo, no problem. Everything is fine. Okay. It really should be. The world's not going to change, but we should be fine. What is that fine? So Arjuna asked the question. What was the question you asked him? He asked Krishna, Arjuna inquired, "O my dear Lord, by which symptoms is one known who has transcended these three modes? What is his behavior, and how does he transcend the modes of nature?" Then Krishna gives his answers. "O son of Pandu, he who does not hate illumination, attachment, and delusion when they are present, or long for them when they disappear." Then he goes on and on and on, all these things. So a devotee can study this, what we just read, repeatedly, study. You know why? Because you're not going to get it the first 50,000 times. You got to go in there. You know why you don't get it? Because our service is not pure yet. You're not going to get understanding without pure service. Bhajitam pritipurvaka. So the focus should be, let me improve my service. What's the first service? Chanting rounds. 1 round, 4 rounds, 8 rounds, 16 rounds, more than 16 rounds, but with love and affection, love and attention. So, honestly, Prabhu, what happens is that gradually the modes of material nature are still there. There's a very interesting lecture Hridayananda Maharaj gave one time, and it used to be on those cassettes, and they had all the titles, you know. Now we don't use cassettes. So it said, how the modes rule our day. How the modes rule our day. In the morning time is Brahma Muhurta, best time for hearing and chanting, Brahma Muhurta. And then because later in the day, passion starts to get in there. And then in the evening, that mode of ignorance starts to come. But for a devotee, they can handle all those different time frames. So I remember once in Atlanta when we had a shortage of devotees, it was just my dear God brother Ramanath Sukha, who was the head cook and head pujari at the same time for 2 sets of deities. And 7 RTs every day. So he was overwhelmed because he only had a few bhaktas and me and Swarup Damodar Maharaj, just a few of us were there. So Ramanath Sukha went to Hridayananda Maharaj, and he said, Maharaj, I'm struggling so much. I have to cook the offerings, I have to dress the deities, I have to do the artis. I can't chant my rounds in the morning. And he said, Prabhu, whenever you chant nicely. Whether it's morning, afternoon, or evening, chant nicely, because he gave the example, and that includes Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, when they had the library party. A lot of devotees don't know what that is, but this is back in the 70s when devotees were going to the universities, putting full sets of Prabhupada's books in all the major universities all over the world. So they had no time. They had to be in the school before the school starts. They had the super time in the morning running, and they couldn't chant in the morning. They had to chant when they could chant. So they learned the science of attentive chanting anytime, anywhere, because we're not this body. Modes of material nature disacting anyway. But I'm going to focus on Krishna. So the secret is that you don't get control of the modes of material nature. You cannot control the modes of material nature. But you can be transcendental just by remembering Krishna. So that's my understanding, honestly.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Yes, that is really, really helpful. Thank you so much. It's remembering the Lord
Mm,
and helping each other to remember the Lord.
mm.
Thank you so much. Any questions from devotees? Any thoughts? Any reflection? Any question? Please do raise your hand, or you can just jump right in. Another question I had, Prabhu, is I think is the next verse, 19 or 20.
Okay.
I'm going to see if my daughter can go forward. And this, yeah, Srila Prabhupada talked about spiritual happiness.
Mm.
It's the next one.
20.
I'm pretty sure. I think it's 20. Yeah, I think it's verse 20. When Srila Prabhupada, yes, I think it's this one. So here, Prabhu, Srila Prabhupada is saying that even in this body, he can enjoy spiritual happiness. In other words, devotional service and Krishna consciousness is the sign of liberation from material entanglement. To my understanding, Prabhu, and please let me know if it's not correct, is what Srila Prabhupada is trying to say here is spiritual happiness is devotional service. Is that what it is, Prabhu?
He can enjoy the happiness of spiritual life, even in this body. And spiritual life means devotional service. So you're absolutely correct.
Mm.
It's like nectar in the beginning or poison. I'm sorry, like poison in the beginning, nectar at the end. So not having illicit sex, not taking intoxication, giving up meat eating. I mean, I never gambled because I never had money. But anyway, no gambling, So all those things that we were attached to, I was very attached to several things. And it was, some things were difficult, some things were not. Like smoking marijuana was easy to give up. When I read what Prabhupada said in chapter 3, it was like, gave it up. Smoking cigarettes was different. It was very difficult to get. I was so attached to smoking cigarettes. But anyway, gradually by devotional service, devotees always made sure that I did some devotional service. Hey, Bhakta Ben, would you like to do this? Hey, Bhakta Ben, would you like to do that? Yeah. Hey, Bhakta Ben, like always engaging me because they knew the science. Just keep this knucklehead engaged, okay? He'll gradually get over these attachments. So the happiness I started to feel, and I'll give you I think I told this story before when I was a young devotee and there was this other young devotee. Actually, before I even joined the temple, I know what it was. This bhakta, really beautiful bhakta. So I would always come to the temple after work. I got off work at 4:00 and I go to the temple and wait for my bus and all that. And I spend time with the devotees. But I remember this day like yesterday. That bhakta was sitting on the front porch of the temple and he had this look on his face like an angel. And he said these words, I'm paraphrasing how he said it. He said, it's so wonderful to come back to the temple in the evening, afternoon, take a shower and put on tilak. That's all he said. I looked at this guy and went, man, I wish I could do that. Because I'm just getting off work, dealing with these karmis, got my stupid blue uniform on. I said, girl, I want to be like him. And there's another picture I believe it's in the Reservoir of Pleasure or either on Chanting. I think it's Reservoir of Pleasure. Anyway, there's a picture of a devotee sitting down near a window with the light coming through the window and he's holding the book very intently. That happens to be my godbrother, Jivanuga, who was in Atlanta when I joined. And that look on his face, because I had that book as one of the books I bought, and just looking at his picture, it attracted me. I want to be like that. I want whatever that is. I want to be part of that. And in the last quick story is when I was on Harinam once, and an old friend of mine from the neighborhood who was a heroin junkie. The guy was on heroin all the time. But anyway, he would see me downtown. So one day he saw me downtown. He came up to me and said, Benny, man, I don't know what it is you got, man, but I want it. I want what you got. Because he knew from the neighborhood. I never took heroin, but I was, into the drugs and all that. And he knew me from the neighborhood. And he could see me now. And he's like, God, man, how did you get it? I want that. So that happiness that we radiate comes from devotional service. It doesn't come from position, doesn't come from power, doesn't come from so-called influence. It comes from devotional service. It's like it's internal and it shows on your face. Prabhupada says the face is the index of your mind and also your eyes. You can see. The other day, there's one Mataji, she had gone through COVID, young girl. She's like my little niece, I love her so much. And I said, how are you doing? I said, let me see your eyes. I looked deep. I said, let me see your eyes. And I said, yes, because I was on Janmashtami. I said, you're okay. because the eyes and the heart, and she was so happy to be at the temple. You know, she had been on her quarantine and she was just she had to come for Janmashtami to see devotees and Prabhupada. And I could see the happiness in her face. It made me happy. So again, that happiness is devotional service. It's not material. We get confused. We get a little position in ISKCON, we get a little power, and we think that's happiness. And you know as well as I know, honestly, the more position you get, the more headache you get. So it's not, but the happiness is also there in the headache because we're serving Krishna by helping the devotees. As long as we understand, I'm taking this headache so that I can help another devotee make progress in devotional service. So I don't mind the headache. I don't mind the pain because I'm performing devotional service to assist the devotee, to serve Srila Prabhupada, to serve your guru, to serve the deities. So all devotees should etch this in your mind. The secret to happiness is sincere devotional service. Happiness is a byproduct of sincere devotional service. And the devotional service itself, what does it say in the Bhagavad Gita? What is the verse? Susukam kartam avyayam. What's the beginning of that verse? Rajavidyam rajaguyam pavitram idam uttamam pratyaksha agamam dharmyam susukam kartam avyayam. It's joyfully performed. Joyfully. Susukam kartam avyayam. That's devotional service. So that's my thought on that. You want to share anything?
No, Prabhu, thank you so much for confirming, because I was just having this thought when I read this, where I said, okay, let me just make sure that what I'm thinking is correct and not wrong. So thank you for sharing that. Papana Prabhu, please go ahead.
Oh, wow. I was thinking of raising my hand, but you saw it before I did. Prabhu, I just wanted to share my gratitude. I've heard you a few times in this forum and you always inspire me. And I'm very, accept my gratitude from my heart. Thank you very much for giving us your time.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Last week when we were, a couple of weeks ago when we were traveling to go to Chandramani Swami's class, Pavana Prabhu was sharing that when he attends your class of Prabhu, you remind him of Bhakti Tirtha Swami.
Yes, Prabhu, you do.
Yeah, he was my very good friend. He was one of my top mentors. I had several godbrother mentors and godsister mentors who I try to follow their example. That's the thing. You can't imitate, but you just follow. Learn. That's the secret. Just keep learning, keep learning. You'll never know enough because Krishna never knows enough about himself. He's always learning more about himself. It just keeps expanding. But if we become proud, thinking that we know, even we're reading the same purport, the same verse, 2 years later, you're going to get different realizations because you make more advancements. So you can see within one word, you'll start to see a plethora of transcendental understanding from one word. It's incredible. Like tomorrow I have to give a class in Philadelphia and it's called, in 2 words in the purport, mental equanimity. And it appears several times. So I just typed it into the folio today and it's like throughout everywhere is mental equanimity. And it's so amazing. So I look it up. I said, wow, that's incredible. And that's what Prabhupada is teaching us or asking us to achieve that level in leadership. He's talking specifically about leadership, you're in the same chapter, you're getting close in the Bhagavatam. It's like leadership requires mental equanimity, peaceful mind, controlled. It's like what we're talking about here, just focus, because material nature will come after you, even in the shape of devotees, will cause you so much disturbance. So how do you deal with that? Same way you deal with the philosophy you're reading here. Be peaceful. You just be peaceful the best that you can by focusing on Krishna. I just saw something, it was an interesting little movie. And there was one scene where this teacher was trying to help this young boy who was turning into like a little gang member, whatever. And the kid was like, just leave me alone, get out of my way, leave me alone, get out. And the teachers just lovingly embraced him. The guy was still punching, he was just holding on to him. And I was in tears because I did that once when I worked with some young gang members in my hometown. I had to hold a young man. I said, you're not going to jail today, not today. And he's like crying. I was like, wow. So in the midst of all that, I was thinking of Prabhupada and Krishna. How can I help this person? And I was joyous in my heart. One of the most to me, it was one of the most amazing days in my life, Krishna conscious or otherwise, to hold that young man, to protect him from hurting himself and hurting others. It was in the spirit of Krishna consciousness. So yeah, we can be Krishna conscious anywhere, anytime. Don't make excuses, because at the time of death, your excuses better be damn good. Because you're going to have to tell it to Krishna. Krishna, I didn't do this because I didn't like that devotee. Krishna, I didn't do that because she didn't give me this or that. And Krishna says, okay, maybe you have to try one more life. So we
I
want to
dread that sentence.
but we have time. Prabhupada said, from the moment you realize it, begin there. Don't worry about what you didn't do in the past. Krishna says, sarva papebhyo. You just surrender to me, I'll take care of all the sarva papebhyo, all the sinful reaction, past, present, future. Don't worry about it. Just surrender. So that's a great encouragement, that all we have to do is surrender. Now we just have to study how to surrender, right, Anasuya? We just have to study, how do I surrender?
Yes,
How do
that
I
has been
practice?
my daily question, Prabhu. Meditation.
Nice. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much, Prabhu. And thank you, Pavana Prabhu, for sharing your gratitude. Touched my heart. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions from devotees? Any thoughts? Any reflection? Prabhu, I have a quick question. As you're speaking on, and I know we passed the time, but I'll just take a few seconds.
No problem.
In terms of spiritual happiness and in devotional service, and then you mentioned, in the beginning it's poison that becomes nectar. How can one develop the attitude of perseverance in devotional service from poison to nectar and not give up and look at it like, oh my God,
Well, you have to have faith in the outcome. Okay, anything in life, you don't start at perfection level. Practice, there's two ways they talk about it. Practice makes perfect. Another way they say practice makes permanent. Practice makes perfect, practice makes permanent. It's like I gave the example about music, and I play drums and all that, and there's something called muscle memory. You do a thing long enough, and they tell you don't do it fast, do it slow, so that your muscles begin to recognize it. And then you can just it just happens naturally. So Krishna consciousness, there's practice involved. We're in devotional service in practice. This is not pure devotional service yet for us. This is devotional service in practice. That's why we have to get up at a certain time, do this, do that, all these regulations. In the future, it becomes very natural, spontaneous. Okay, Raganuga Bhakti, we're not there yet. So we have to know the end result. There's a book called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I'm sure some devotees may have read that. And I love what Dr. Stephen Covey says in the beginning. He says, begin with the end in mind. So what is the end of Krishna consciousness? So someone may challenge that, well, Bhagavad, that's a material concept. Well, not exactly. Because Krishna, with the residents of Vrindavan, because they were a little bit doubtful about what is their ultimate goal, what's going to happen. So in order to assure them of the ultimate goal, Krishna showed them the spiritual world to convince them, you will get this. Don't worry, you will have this wonderful spiritual end result. So do we know what the end result of the practice of bhakti is? Who knows? Can someone on the call tell me what the end result is? Come on, don't be shy. I'll tell you. Prema pum artha mahan. Artha means benefit. So the highest benefit is prema, love of Krishna, love of God. Prema pum artha mahan. Keep that in your mind. So then you start studying. What are the symptoms of love of God? What are the symptoms when someone loves God? It all becomes clear when you read. So then when you read the books, you start seeing these different segments and things that can guide you. And you start making notes and remembering and practicing. And then, as Prabhupada says, in the 13th chapter, verses 8 through 12, those 20 plus items, right in the purport, he says, one should have a test of how he's progressing. And he can use these items to judge the tests. So practical. You don't have to speculate. Am I okay? Am I making advancement? Well, if you're humble, you're making advancement. And what is humility? Prabhupada says in that purport in 13th chapter, not being anxious for the satisfaction of being honored by others. So you just say, wait a minute, I'm always looking to be appreciated. I'm always looking to be, appreciated by others. God, I got to work on this being humble. Then Lord Chaitanya elaborates even more. Trinadapi Nichena, Tarodapi. So you practice thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street, devoid of all sense of false prestige, more tolerant than the tree, ready to offer respect to others, not expecting for yourself. In that state of mind, you can chant. So it all starts to come together. It takes time, but it all starts to come together. All those verses that you've been reading, then you start seeing those connecting dots. You're like Nasta Prayasabhadre Sunityam Bhagavad the Savior connects. Boom. Trinadapi Nichena connects. They all start connecting. Then you just feel it's almost like the residents of Vrindavan were convinced of the spirit, that they were going to go back to God because Krishna showed them the spiritual world. So now you become convinced because you see those connecting dots and you see it practically in your life. Wow. When I followed Prabhupada's words, this happened. But then you get spaced out again. So that's why you have to read every day, keep studying, keep attending as many classes as you can. And I highly recommend, as Anasuya just said, that class that you talked about Srila Prabhupada gave, that's one of I love that class. It's a really nice class.
Yeah, I think he gave it in LA, I believe, but it was on Radhastami.
Yeah. Get that thing out of my room. He said, how much is the phone? $40. $40. And the phone was immediately in my room. And then cling, cling. Swamiji, are you okay? At 2 a.m, you're calling me? Get that phone.
What is this inquiry needed? That's what it was. Hilarious.
That's in the class. And you get to hear Prabhupada be humorous. You get to hear him tell stories. You get to hear his voice. Some people say, well, I can't understand. Well, keep listening. Listen, I'm from the hood and I can understand him. Okay, come on. Keep listening. Okay, even if you can't understand, Srila Prabhupada said about his guru that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati saw something in him. Why? Because the other people were walking out, leaving. The class was too high philosophy. Prabhupada said he spoke very high philosophy, but I could not understand, but I was listening. But other devotees were going away. He said, Guru Maharaj saw something in me. So even if you can't understand what Prabhupada says, just imagine how fortunate you are to hear his voice. Anasuya, can you imagine hearing the voice of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada?
Beyond my conception, Prabhu.
Just think about it.
It's just amazing.
Or Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Or just
I know he was very eloquent.
Yeah.
From what I've read about him,
but you haven't heard his voice.
And from what I've read and heard about Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, he was a very eloquent, educated, scholarly. He spoke with such dignity, and he was amongst the officials in the British, Parliament and whatever. And it was like, whoa.
But we've never heard his voice. But we have Prabhupada's voice on hundreds of lectures, and devotees don't take advantage of that. That bewilders me, because if we had 5 minutes of Bhaktisiddhanta, we'd all be running to get it. Am I correct? Yeah. We just go crazy to get it. There's one movie they show, supposedly Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. There's no sound. It's just him sitting and giving a lecture. Very, very interesting. It's like the biography of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. And devotees are just running to see that movie. We have dozens of movies of Srila Prabhupada, hundreds of lectures recorded. Please take advantage of it. Don't make the excuse that, I can't understand, I don't have time. Those excuses better be good. Because Krishna's
good as you said, Prabhu.
Krishna's going to say, I gave you everything. I gave you Prabhupada. I let Prabhupada come when there was all this recording stuff, so you can have Prabhupada. Please, are you taking him? That's the only question I have for all of us. Are we taking advantage of Srila Prabhupada's presence? Okay, when you go to the temple room, you see the Murti in the temple room. I'm telling you, because I sat in front of Prabhupada, Atlanta, Philadelphia, India, Delhi, all these times I saw him sitting at his lotus feet, fanning him, being with him. So in his presence, nobody did nonsense. I'm telling you right now. You didn't talk loud. You didn't do anything stupid in front of Prabhupada. So he's there. So I asked this question the other day at Vyasa Puja in Atlanta. We were just getting ready for the Pushpanjali, and the people were so crowded, Prabhupada couldn't see the deities. I said, listen, let me ask you all a question. Is Prabhupada here? Yes or no? I said, now listen, I was here when he was sitting in that same spot. And I can tell you, 400 or 500 devotees, including Bhakti Raj, there was a pin silence in that room. 400 or 500 devotees. But when Prabhupada spoke, so I said, is he there or not? And everyone said, yes. I said, well, how should we act in front of Prabhupada? Think about that. We have Prabhupada. He hadn't gone anywhere. It's not like I'm a disciple, I have Prabhupada, you don't have Prabhupada. We all have Prabhupada. Let me shut up before.
It reminds me of Vichagada Prabhu, WWSPD.
Yes, what would
Srila Prabhupada do? Because sometimes that also concerns me, Prabhu, when, in the temple, when devotees are, talking among themselves, but still classes going on and Srila Prabhupada is there. And and I wish we all can just know that Srila Prabhupada is there and just be silent and not speak.
Isn't it?
Or even, being on our cell phones, or if Srila Prabhupada was there, would we do that? And that's one thing that I really appreciate Vishnupada Prabhu's comment, WWSPD, what would Srila Prabhupada do? If he was here, would we behave that way? Would we do this? Would we do that? And that has really been helping me to be much more attentive also. I think you talked about like 3-4 years ago, and since then I'm like, I better catch myself. Because it's real. And in fact, I remember this, I believe it was either spoken by one of my god brothers, god sisters, or by Bhaktivedanta Swami, where he says, if he was here, would I do that? Or would I behave that way? Yeah. Would I say that way, or would I speak, or would I talk, or would I, because there were times where I've seen Maharaj give class, and when we just make a single sound or make whatever, he'll call out on us.
Yeah, Prabhupada would do the same thing. The other day I was listening to a class, and he told the devotees, what's going on there? What is that? He said, if you don't hear in the class how you make advancement, he stopped the devotees. He said, what is going on? He said, oh, you're busy doing some work. But you don't hear the class, you won't make advancement. But so many wonderful things, So. And
that's a nice post by Dear Krishna. He said, there are more than 2,100 recorded lectures for by Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for encouraging us to hear more from Srila Prabhupada.
And they're all freely available on Prabhupada Vani.
Yes.
The kirtans, the lectures, Amala Bhakti Maharaj reading Prabhupada's. Oh my God, it's just too much nectar.
Too much nectar, Prabhu. Thank you so much, Prabhu, for such a lively, interactive, inspiring, encouraging class. And thank you to the devotees for joining us. It's so nice to see more devotees joining. And, so hopefully we can increase our numbers and really attentively attend the classes morning and evening. A very quick reminder, tomorrow morning's class will be at 7 o'clock. It's by Chandramali Swami. He's back in Europe. So please do join us. He just went back, I think, a few days ago. I was just informed by his disciple. So please join us tomorrow at 7 o'clock, a class by His Holiness Chandramali Swami online tomorrow, Srimad Bhagavatam. Until then, thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Balabhadra Prabhu.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai. Haribol, Preacher Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, except for our basis.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Haribol.